The palace was quiet, almost eerily so, as if the very walls were holding their breath. Golden chandeliers swayed gently with the evening breeze that slipped through the tall, arched windows, casting dancing shadows across the marble floors. The scent of polished oak and faint traces of lavender drifted through the corridors, a reminder of a life both grand and fragile. Aurelia stood on the balcony, her hands resting lightly on the ornate railing, her gaze fixed on the sprawling gardens below. The hedges were trimmed with the precision of decades of royal care, the fountains glimmered under the soft moonlight, and the distant sounds of the city, quiet carriage wheels, the occasional bark of a dog, seemed like a world away. Yet all of it felt unreal to her. Her thoughts churned like wild waves, a tempest she could not control. The truth of her birth, hidden for so many years, clawed at her mind. The knowledge that she was the rightful heir to the throne filled her with both exhilaration and dread. And now her sister Celia, unexpected, brash, and impossibly close to her own claim, was about to confront her. "Everything I've been told, everything I've believed was a lie," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the rustling of the trees outside. Memories of her mother, Queen Elena, filled her mind, the warmth of her smile, the soft way she had tucked Aurelia into bed, the love that had been carefully veiled beneath courtly decorum. And then there was Joseph, her father, whose letters had been her lifeline in exile, his words a lifeboat through years of uncertainty. Aurelia's fingers traced the delicate iron railing, feeling the cold metal beneath her touch. Every detail of the palace, the glinting chandeliers, the polished floors, the carefully framed portraits of long-dead monarchs, reminded her that this world was hers by birthright, yet not hers to command, not yet. The silence was broken by the soft sound of footsteps, almost hesitant, on the marble floors behind her. She turned to see Peter, her loyal friend and confidant, approaching. His cloak brushed lightly against the walls, and he bowed with the respect and care that had become his quiet signature. "Aurelia," he said, his voice low, tinged with worry, "Celia is asking for you. She wishes to speak before the coronation." Aurelia's heart tightened in her chest. She had imagined this confrontation countless times during her years in exile. She had rehearsed the words she would say, the authority she would claim, the dignity she would hold. But now, standing on the threshold of it all, the reality made her pulse quicken and her stomach twist into knots. "I will see her," she said finally, her voice steadier than she felt, but a tremor betrayed her inner anxiety. Peter inclined his head, giving her a faint, encouraging smile. "I'll accompany you, of course," he added, stepping back slightly to allow her the space to move forward. His presence was a small comfort, a reminder that even in the midst of palace intrigue and secret claims, she was not alone. Aurelia lingered on the balcony a moment longer, letting the cool night air wash over her. She closed her eyes briefly, breathing in the sense of the palace, the gardens, and the faint, lingering perfume of her mother's chambers. In that instant, she allowed herself to feel the full weight of her destiny, the responsibility, the fear, and most importantly, the hope that she could reclaim her place, not with cruelty or force, but with wisdom and courage. The distant toll of a clock echoed through the halls, marking the approach of the hour of decision. Aurelia opened her eyes, her jaw set with determination. She would face Celia, she would face the court, and for the first time in her life she would claim the truth that had been denied her. With one final glance at the moonlit gardens below, she turned, her gown swishing softly against the marble floor, and followed Peter into the long corridor that led to her sister, and the confrontation that would decide the fate of the kingdom. The royal chamber was bathed in a warm, golden glow, soft and inviting yet tinged with tension. The air smelled faintly of jasmine and old parchment, the comforting sense of a home steeped in history. Celia stood near the tall windows, her posture rigid, her fingers clasping each other so tightly that her knuckles whitened. She had paced the room for what felt like hours, gathering her courage, rehearsing the words she might speak, yet no preparation could quell the whirlwind of emotions roiling inside her. Aurelia stepped inside, her gown flowing like liquid gold. The delicate embroidery caught the flickering torchlight, shimmering with each careful step. She paused at the doorway, taking in the sight of her sister, older and yet somehow still the child she had once known, strong-willed, proud, and utterly determined. "You came," Celia said at last, her voice trembling but resolute. There was a faint quiver, the unspoken fear of losing not just her throne but the sister she barely knew. "I had to," Aurelia replied, her own voice soft yet firm. "I cannot let the throne be claimed without facing you. This is not just about power, it is about truth." For a long moment, the room was silent except for the faint crackle of the fireplace. Shadows danced across the walls, casting elongated forms of the two sisters, reflections of a rivalry and bond tangled together. Aurelia stepped closer, her eyes meeting Celia's with a mixture of compassion and determination. "Do you really think," Celia began, taking a hesitant step forward, "that taking the throne will make you happy? Or will it simply leave both of us empty? We could destroy everything our parents worked for if we fight like this." Aurelia's fingers tightened around the edge of a nearby table. "Happiness is irrelevant right now. What matters is justice and what is rightfully mine. You have lived in my place for years, unaware of the truth, but now it is revealed. I cannot ignore it. I will not." Celia's eyes filled with tears, though she tried to blink them away. "And what of the people? Have you thought about them? The kingdom does not belong to one of us alone, it belongs to everyone. You claim justice, but at what cost? The crown may be yours, but what of the hearts and lives that will be broken in the process?" Aurelia's gaze softened for the briefest moment. The words struck her harder than she expected. The weight of responsibility, the responsibility she had dreamed of, now pressed down on her like a mountain. She took a measured breath, letting her shoulders relax slightly. "I do not wish to hurt anyone. That is not my intention. I only seek to restore what was taken from me, and perhaps in doing so, we can find a way to protect the kingdom without tearing it apart." Celia looked at her sister intently, searching for a hint of compromise. A spark of understanding. "You speak of compromise, but I do not know how we can find it. We have been raised differently, shaped by different truths. Can two sisters, torn apart by lies, truly reconcile now?" Aurelia stepped closer, her voice gentle, almost pleading. "We can, but it requires honesty, courage, and trust. Celia, I am not here to destroy you. I am here to reclaim what is mine, yes, but also to ensure that the throne is guided with wisdom, not merely by legacy or fear." Celia's hands fell to her sides, trembling. She took a slow breath, steadying herself. "And if I refuse, if I cannot let go of what I have known as my life, my duty?" Aurelia's eyes softened with empathy, yet her resolve did not waver. "Then we will find another path, together or apart. But you must know this, the truth cannot be silenced. It will find its way as it has always done." A tense silence fell over the chamber again. The flickering light from the torches seemed to pause in anticipation, the walls themselves holding their breath. Outside, the palace gardens shimmered under the moonlight, serene and untouched by the storm brewing inside. I do not want to fight you," Celia admitted at last, her voice barely above a whisper, "but I do not know if I can step aside either." Aurelia nodded, understanding the conflict that tore at her sister's heart. "I do not ask you to step aside without reason. I ask only that you see the truth and consider the kingdom's future, not just your own place within it." The two sisters stood facing each other, each a reflection of the other in ways neither had anticipated. Strength and vulnerability intertwined, a fragile bridge of trust and tension forming between them. Aurelia could see it in Celia's eyes, a flicker of uncertainty, a hint of doubt about her own claim, a small opening where reason might take root. "Then," Celia said slowly, "let us speak openly. No secrets, no lies. If we are to face the kingdom, we must first face each other." Aurelia's lips curved into a small, almost imperceptible smile. "Agreed, no secrets. We speak the truth no matter how difficult it may be." And with that, the first true conversation between the sisters began, a dialogue that would shape the fate of the kingdom, the hearts of the people, and the bond between two girls born of the same blood, yet separated by deception. The corridors of the palace were hushed, but they were far from empty. Shadows stretched across the polished marble floors, twisting and contorting under the dim light of flickering torches. Every corner, every archway seemed to whisper secrets, secrets of betrayal, ambition, and long-buried truths. Cousin Leopold moved like a phantom through these halls. His steps were silent, deliberate, each one measured to avoid detection. The weight of his intentions pressed heavily upon him. He had watched Aurelia's return with keen eyes, observing her courage, her determination, and the fiery spark in her gaze. "They do not know I am here," he muttered under his breath, brushing past the cold stone walls. "They do not suspect the truth I carry or the power I could wield with it." Leopold paused outside Queen Elena's private chamber. The door was slightly ajar, allowing the golden glow from the firelight to spill into the hallway. Inside, the queen rested, pale and fragile, her body weakened by years of stress and the burden of secrets too heavy to bear. Her breaths were slow, steady, yet Leopold knew how quickly it could all change. One shocking revelation, one cruel manipulation, and her health could fail entirely. I must tread carefully, he whispered, his dark eyes narrowing. A wrong word, a careless action, and everything I've planned could crumble. The crown, the claim, the throne, it is all at stake. I cannot afford failure. He stepped further into the shadowed corridor, moving past servants who carried trays of wine and candles, their chatter oblivious to the plotting that surrounded them. Even the guards, stationed dutifully at their posts, were unaware of the intricate web being woven in their midst. Secrets were currency in this palace, and Leopold intended to spend them wisely, extracting advantage where he could. As he moved, his mind replayed the years of exile, of watching Aurelia grow from a distance. He remembered her defiance, her intelligence, and the quiet way she had always observed, always learned, always prepared. She might be young, but she was dangerous because she sought truth, and truth, once uncovered, could topple kingdoms. If they only knew, he whispered, brushing a strand of dark hair from his face, how much I know, how carefully I have waited, they would tremble. Leopold's footsteps slowed as he approached a narrow staircase that led to the castle's forgotten levels, corridors few dared to explore. Here, he had hidden letters, evidence, and secrets too explosive for the light of day. This was his arsenal, his advantage, and he intended to use it at the opportune moment. Above, in the Queen's chambers, Aurelia's presence was unknown, her confrontation with Celia unfolding peacefully for now, but Leopold's mind raced with possibilities. Could he manipulate the sisters, conflict to serve his own ambitions? Could he twist their trust into betrayal, their hesitation into submission? Soon, he breathed, everything will change. The throne, the court, the kingdom, all of it will bend to the truth I hold, or to the lies I choose to reveal. He paused at a shadowed corner, watching a servant pass, carrying a candle with a delicate, nervous hand. Leopold's lips curved into a thin, cold smile. Patience is the key, he murmured. Let them stumble, let them falter, and I will be there ready to claim the advantage. The game has begun. With that, he vanished deeper into the darkness of the castle, leaving only the faintest echo of his presence behind, a whisper in the halls, a secret waiting to explode. Scene 4. Aurelia's strategy. Aurelia returned to her private chambers, the soft glow of candlelight casting long shadows across the walls. The room, adorned with elegant tapestries and shelves filled with royal records, felt smaller than usual, as if the weight of the kingdom pressed upon her from every corner. The letters from her father lay spread across her polished writing desk, each one a fragile thread connecting her past to the destiny she was now determined to claim. She picked up the first letter, her fingers trembling slightly as she traced the delicate handwriting. Every word, every line, this is proof, she murmured to herself, her voice barely audible over the crackle of the fireplace. The letters had been her secret treasure, her only connection to Joseph, her father, who had lived in exile while ensuring she remained hidden and safe. And now they had become her most powerful weapon. Peter entered quietly, closing the door behind him. He leaned against the frame, arms crossed, studying her with a mixture of concern and admiration. You truly intend to bring him here, to the castle, the risks? His voice trailed off, uncertain how to finish the warning. I must, Aurelia replied, her eyes firm and resolute. Every moment I delay, the kingdom remains under deception. My claim, the truth of my birth, it cannot wait. I cannot simply stand aside while lies dictate the future of our people. Peter shook his head, though a hint of understanding softened his expression. And the coronation, if anything goes wrong. Then I ensure it does not go wrong, Aurelia interrupted gently. She spread the letters out on the desk again, mapping their contents, the addresses, the timelines, and the hidden messages her father had painstakingly included. Each step must be precise. One mistake, one miscalculation, and the opportunity is lost forever. But I will not fail. She stood, packing the room with the firelight reflecting in her determined eyes. Every plan, every contingency raced through her mind. I must bring him here without raising alarm. I must ensure that when the truth is revealed it cannot be denied. And I must protect Saloua. She is my sister, and despite everything, she deserves a chance to understand, to see the full picture before any confrontation destroys her spirit. Peter finally stepped closer, lowering his voice. You are brave, perhaps braver than anyone could expect, but even bravery will not prevent all consequences. You are about to challenge not only the throne but the entire court, the ministers, and the expectations of the kingdom itself. Aurelia nodded slowly, her mind sharpened with determination. I know, and I am ready. I will use these letters to reveal the truth, but I will do it with care. No unnecessary harm, no hasty action. Every step, every word, every decision must be deliberate. The kingdom, the people, the throne, they are all intertwined with the truth I carry. She paused, looking toward the window where the moonlight bathed the gardens in silver. Father, I hope you understand. I will bring you here safely. And when I do, the kingdom will know the truth and my claim will be undeniable. Not through force, but through justice. Peter watched her, the admiration in his eyes mingled with worry. Then we prepare. Every move must be calculated. Every guard, every servant, every pathway, we leave nothing to chance. Arulagh smiled faintly, a mixture of determination and anticipation glimmering in her gaze. We start tonight. The city streets, the hidden alleys, the addresses in these letters, every detail matters. We are not simply reclaiming a throne, we are reclaiming a legacy, a truth, and a future for everyone who believes in justice. Together, they leaned over the letters, plotting each step, marking routes, and imagining every possible obstacle. The night outside deepened, the moon climbing higher as the first plans of Arulagh's daring strategy unfolded. Each moment was crucial, every decision a thread in the intricate tapestry of fate she was weaving. And though the palace slept, oblivious to the storm about to be unleashed, Arulagh's mind raced with courage, strategy, and an unwavering belief that truth at last would have its day. The morning sun filtered through the palace's grand windows, casting long beams of light across the marble floors. Servants hurried through the corridors, polishing silver trays, arranging flowers, and adjusting the tapestries so that every corner of the castle gleamed with regal perfection. Yet beneath the bustle of activity, a current of tension hummed invisibly, as if the palace itself sensed the storm that was about to break. Arulagh and Peter moved quietly through the corridors, carrying the letters and plans like precious treasures. Every step was calculated, every glance measured. The servants passed by, unaware of the weight of the truth that these young intruders carried. The palace guards, too, continued their rounds with disciplined precision, unaware that the very foundation of their authority was about to be shaken. "We must be cautious," Peter whispered, leaning close to Arulagh. "One misstep and the entire plan could be exposed. The coronation, the ministers, even Saloua herself could be caught off guard." Arulagh nodded, her eyes sweeping over the hallways as if reading their every shadow and crevice. "I know. Every corridor, every door, every servant, nothing can be left to chance. My father's letters are proof of my claim, but proof alone is not enough. The court must witness it or it will be dismissed as fiction." They paused outside the great hall where the coronation would take place. The doors were massive, carved from ancient oak and adorned with gold filigree that reflected the sunlight. From inside, the muffled sounds of preparation could be heard, the shuffle of chairs, the distant clinking of ceremonial crowns, and the hushed whispers of nobles and attendants alike. "This is it," Arulagh murmured, her hand brushing the smooth surface of the door. "Once we step inside, there is no turning back. Every eye will be upon us. Every word, every gesture, every move will be remembered." Peter placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We are ready. You have the letters, the proof, and your courage. That is all we need." As they entered the hall, Arulagh felt a wave of emotions crash over her. Pride, fear, determination, and longing all mingled in her chest. She glanced around at the faces of the ministers and nobles, some familiar, some strangers. The eyes that once ignored her presence now would see her as more than a shadow. Now she would stand in the light of truth. Saloua was already there, seated near the throne, her posture perfect, yet her eyes flickering with uncertainty. The moment Arulagh's gaze met hers, time seemed to slow. The room felt suspended, as if every servant, guard, and noble were holding their breath, waiting for the inevitable confrontation. "Sister," Arulagh said softly, her voice carrying just enough to reach Saloua, yet calm enough to command attention. "Before this coronation begins, we must speak openly. No lies, no secrets, just the truth for the sake of the kingdom and ourselves." Saloua's lips pressed into a thin line, and her hands clenched lightly in her lap. She inhaled slowly, then spoke, her voice clear though tinged with emotion. "Very well. Let us speak, but know this, the court watches and any misstep could have consequences we cannot predict." Arulagh stepped closer, laying the letters on a nearby table with deliberate care. "These letters from my father prove the truth of my birth, my claim, and the secrecy forced upon us for so long." Whispers began to ripple through the hall. Ministers leaned forward, eyes widening. Guards shifted uneasily. The tension in the room thickened like a stormcloud ready to burst. Arulagh held her head high, every word deliberate. Every gesture measured to command respect, without inciting panic. Peter remained close, ready to intervene if needed, yet careful to let Aurelia lead. Every second that passed heightened the suspense, as the room collectively realized that the coronation might not proceed as planned. The throne, the kingdom, and the fate of its people were now balanced on the edge of a knife, poised between the past secrets and the truth that Aurelia was ready to reveal. The moment stretched, eyes darted between the letters Aurelia and Celia. Aurelia's heartbeat echoed in her ears, yet her voice remained steady. This kingdom deserves honesty. It deserves a ruler who carries the truth, not just a title. And with that declaration, the first ripple of change began to spread through the hall. Every whisper, every glance, every uncertain breath became part of the unfolding story, a story that would decide the throne, the sisters, and the kingdom itself. The grand hall of the palace was alive with anticipation. Nobles, ministers, and guests had taken their places, the glimmer of jewels and polished armor reflecting the morning sunlight streaming through the towering stained glass windows. The air buzzed with whispers, speculation, and the quiet tension of expectation. Every eye was on the throne at the far end, where history was about to be rewritten. Aurelia and Peter entered quietly, stepping into the hall with measured confidence. The letters from her father were hidden safely beneath her cloak, yet their weight pressed on her like a living reminder of the truth she carried. Her chest rose and fell with determination, her mind racing with strategies, contingencies, and the hope that justice would prevail. Celia stood near the throne, her posture regal, her face composed yet pale with anxiety. She caught sight of her sister and stiffened, a mixture of fear, anger, and recognition flickering across her features. "Sister," Aurelia called, her voice steady yet commanding enough to carry across the hall. "Before this coronation continues, you and the court deserve the truth. No lies, no half-told stories, just the facts as they were meant to be." Whispers rippled through the hall like a wave. Ministers exchanged glances, guards shifted uncomfortably. The Queen's crown, meant for Celia, sat glittering on a velvet cushion nearby, its significance now uncertain. Celia's hands clenched into fists, but she forced herself to remain composed. "And you believe this truth changes everything?" she asked, her voice calm but trembling beneath the surface. Aurelia stepped forward, placing the letters carefully on a pedestal where everyone could see. "These letters from my father, Joseph, prove beyond doubt my birthright. I am the first daughter of Queen Elena. The secret marriage, the years in exile, all of it. I cannot stand silent while deception dictates the kingdom's future." The hall erupted in quiet gasps. Ministers leaned forward, some whispering urgently, others reaching to examine the letters. The tension was palpable, each heartbeat in the room echoing like a drumroll to the unfolding drama. Celia's eyes filled with tears, yet she refused to step aside. "You speak of rights and truth, Aurelia, but the people do not know your story. You have hidden for years. How can you suddenly claim the throne and expect acceptance?" "Acceptance comes from honesty, not fear," Aurelia replied firmly. She looked around the hall, her gaze steady, commanding, filled with the authority that had been denied to her for so long. "I will rule with truth, justice, and care. This kingdom deserves a ruler who acknowledges the past, not one who hides behind lies." Peter stepped forward, adding weight to her words. "The proof is here. The court, the crown, and the people can see it. You cannot ignore this." Leopold, lurking in the shadows, clenched his jaw. His plans, his waiting, his manipulations, they were threatened by this moment, yet even he could not deny the undeniable. The letters were clear, the evidence irrefutable, and the courage of Aurelia undeniable. Celia's resolve faltered slightly. She looked at her sister, truly looked at her, and saw not an intruder, not a rival, but the rightful heir, shaped by truth, experience, and a heart ready to serve. Perhaps it is time to acknowledge what cannot be denied," Celia whispered, the edge of her voice softened by reluctant admiration. Aurelia nodded, a mixture of relief and cautious anticipation washing over her. "Together, we can ensure the kingdom thrives, not one sister against the other, but united in the truth that has been hidden too long." The hall seemed to exhale collectively. Ministers murmured, some bowing slightly in recognition, guards relaxed, and the weight of uncertainty began to shift. The coronation, once meant for Celia, now paused at the threshold of history, waiting for the rightful path to be chosen. Aurelia's gaze swept across the hall, landing briefly on the throne. Her heartbeat quickened, not with ambition but with responsibility. "This is not just about a crown," she thought. "It is about the people, the legacy, and the promise of justice that must be honored." Celia stepped forward slowly, her hand resting on Aurelia's shoulder. Lead, sister, show them the way, I will follow, for the kingdom. Aurelia's eyes glistened with emotion, but her voice remained strong. Together, then, we begin anew, no secrets, no shadows, only truth. The court fell silent, awaiting the next moment, the moment when history would be rewritten, not by ambition or deception, but by courage, honesty, and the rightful claim of the first daughter of Queen Elena. And in that silence, Aurelia realized that her journey, her trials, and her years in exile had all led to this. A single step forward, into light, into truth, and into the destiny that had always been hers.